I love that. So, hello, bunnies, and welcome to Burrowed Thoughts. I'm your host, Lana, and today's episode, if you can read a title, we're talking about comfortability. The idea for what I wanted to talk about in this podcast was I obviously associate fear with Bunny and like getting out of this rabbit hole. And to me, the rabbit hole is self-encapsulating idea of you're in your comfortable area. You know where you are. You know who's got your back and who doesn't. And, that's probably like my bed for me. But at the end of the day, I trust my bed. Nothing bad is going to happen to my bed. I say that, but like Ted Bundy exists. You can at least think nothing bad is going to happen in your bed. So that's the sense of comfortability is, so many people, and especially I live in Canada, so people will just like comfortably leave their door unlocked and just be like, oh yeah, nothing's going to happen. That is comfortable. That's what I mean by this topic of conversation is you're leaving your door unlocked because you feel pretty safe. And when you kind of go outside, then maybe you lock your door, right? So I don't know if every Canadian locks their door when they leave their house, but at this point, I probably said that. Now every person who's going to visit Canada is going to like go to other people's door and just check if it's unlocked. And like for Europeans, that's scary, man. This idea, back to the point of comfortability, then leads to, okay, outside the rabbit hole is this sense of unexplored new adventures and opportunity that await for you, but also that's where fear can derive from, is this idea that yeah, you have all this exciting stuff outside. I mean, I'm sure when you were 8 years old you couldn't wait to be an adult. I sure couldn't. But at the same time, then you kind of get here and you're sitting and you're like, okay, there's way more things that I had to be concerned about rather than just like gummy bear and gingerbread houses. It's not always going to have this sense of comfortability. And especially a lot of people even just find something as simple as childhood very comfortable because there was so much less things we had to be concerned about. We had this higher sense of freedom in our lives that we didn't have to be constantly thinking about all the things our parents were thinking about for us. And that's probably something that's really hard to be a parent too, is then you're carrying on the fears of like, oh, my kid, what if this happens? What if that happens? And then preventing them from taking on so many considerable different opportunities maybe. But that's just things that are kind of always happening and always are going to be there. So it's this finding a balance between, okay, living in the uncomfortable and living in the comfortable at the same time. What is interesting as well is the fact that I kind of relate this whole experience to me moving from, I lived in Canada for 10 years before moving away. And 10 years is a considerable amount of time to just get settled, to be like, okay, this is my domain, this is my kingdom. And then just to casually say fuck it all and move continents, not countries, continents, is something that's not an easy feat. So obviously moving was a huge uncomfortable because I didn't have my mom with me anymore. I didn't have my same friends. You had to start from like the ground up completely. And this is probably one of my biggest points you're always going to hear me talk about is moving these countries. But at the same time, I had to find still that sense of comfortability. And then once you get your own apartment and you start figuring everything out, you're going to find that sense of comfortability again. So then you have to find a way again to make yourself uncomfortable. But this idea of being uncomfortable, I feel like everybody talks about it, and sometimes it's just really tiring. You know that you're supposed to want to seek the uncomfortable, but then you're so comfortable in the comfortable that it's like, why? The benefits that you can reap from it are obvious. You know that you can get to this point where you have so much to gain through making yourself uncomfortable, but at the same time, like, who doesn't want to just cuddle up and watch some Netflix? If you don't, I don't think this is a conversation for you. Maybe you're already out eating scorpions or something is what I think of you. But at the same time, I'm just trying to come to this point where it's so talked about that it seems like every time someone tells me, go do something uncomfortable, I'm like, yeah, okay. And how much uncomfortable things do you do a day? Like, probably very little things. And that's why this idea for me of, okay, you have to go out, you have to constantly be doing something that makes you uncomfortable is just kind of unrealistic in its own way. And where I, in this podcast, will always encourage you to seek uncomfortability is like, when I think of something that makes me scared and then saying, okay, I'm going to try to purposely do things to make myself scared, which sounds really masochistic. I think that's what it's called. I don't know. I'm not pronouncing that word properly. English is not my first language, guys. Masochistic. That's the best we're going to get out of that word. But, if you constantly are trying to seek that fear and trying to, okay, because obviously like moving countries was not just going to be something that I was like, oh, fear's just like going out the window, I don't care about it anymore. But it was something that I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving all my friends that I've known for 10 years, my house that I've been living in for X amount of years, like everything I know is just going to be constantly challenged. But me moving away was me seeking that challenge. Now, like, obviously, as I was saying before, don't jump off a bridge daily, but at least find that even if, for example, you're scared of what people will say about you, there's things you can do and actions you can take that make you uncomfortable, because it puts you in that situation of like, what are people thinking about me? And oh no, because if you focus so hard on making yourself likable, which I can account to because just recording this podcast, I'm really, I think one of the girls who's recording it with me right now said, what did you say, Mimi? You called me like tone monitoring? You monitoring? Oh, I'm tone policing myself, which is very true. I'm like, I want to look good. I want to be that type of person that you listen to this podcast and you go, oh my God, I need to go watch the whole rest of the podcast. I need to look at all her pictures, all her videos, because I'm in love. Because I come across those people all the time on the internet, and I don't know how hard they're trying or how hard they're not trying. And I don't know what's the balance, right? So me just even putting myself in front of the camera talking about my opinion and my thoughts, because this is called burrowed thoughts, and I'm sitting here in a bunny hat at the end of the day anyways. It's also me trying to find this place of, okay, I don't care too much about what other people think about me, but at the same time, that'd be a complete lie if I told you I'm not scared of that stuff, because I am sitting here tone policing myself, trying to put myself in this spot where you guys will all like me and decide to comment telling me this is the best podcast you ever heard. But at the same time, I'm at the beginning, so there's so many things to consider about this uncomfortable situation and how to kind of, okay, this is the fear that I have. What kind of steps can I be doing to make myself uncomfortable? And the more you're going to make yourself uncomfortable, I think I saw a chart once that it was like this circle where it was like you're comfy, right? And then it was bigger. And then there was a bigger circle and it was the uncomfortable. But then as soon as you start expanding what makes you comfy by doing uncomfortable things, you then make this bigger circle of comfortableness and then bigger. And it was really cool to think about it, because of the fact that the amount of experiences you get, and then the fact that you automatically become more comfortable with things. For me, like sitting here talking to a camera is uncomfortable to some degree. I can't lie to you. But the more I'm going to do it, the more I'm going to record these episodes and interview people and, troubleshoot and talk to my lovely ladies who shoot with me about all this different stuff, then I will find this place where it makes me comfortable and I can sit here and do it in my sleep, which is the goal. But I can't do that without being uncomfy. And I can't think about, oh, I don't want other people to judge me, without this idea of I have to put myself out there first. And Like Wayne Gretzky, as a Canadian, I'll tell you this. He always says you miss 100 of the shots you don't make, which is so fucking cliche, but it's true, right? And by not making yourself uncomfortable, by trying to reach out and maybe learn that new skill. Like, if anyone has ever told you, for example, like you can't be an artist, which is something that is actually, I think, more common than people think. It's like, go make that art and let people say that you're not a fucking artist or that you're a beginner and you're never going to make it, because at least you're doing something. Like, so many people will be there commenting on whatever you're doing in life anyways, whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable. And they'll also be sitting on their couch, on their phone, on TikTok or whatever social media app they're using to tell you that you suck. So if it's something about, you know, this outside aspect of being uncomfortable, which means that, oh, you know, you're scared of what other people are going to say about you or how the world would view you and all these different things. There's so many things people can say that you might as well make yourself uncomfortable. Just go ahead and do it. Expand how comfortable you later can be, how confident and cool you're going to be afterwards, because honestly, I'm going to tell you, I think you're cool. I think everybody who does things that makes them uncomfortable is cool. And if your friends do not think that whatever you're doing is cool, like when I told my friends I was going to start a podcast just alone, I was like, oh, so many people are going to be like, oh, what the fuck are you doing, Lana? But at the end of the day, like a lot of them were like, oh shit, really cool. I love that for you. Even if this probably would have ended up being the worst podcast they ever listened to in their life, at least they were excited in some way or shape or form. But if you have friends that are telling you, oh, you want to start a podcast? I don't know about that. Like, those are the friends you need to kick to the door right now. Because you're not the problem. They're the problem. So it's not you making yourself uncomfortable. It's them making you uncomfortable. So they got to go so that you can expand your comfortableness. You can expand what confidence you have, what self-esteem you have, so that you can keep doing crazy adventures and make me, I don't know you, you don't know me, but at least make me or anybody in your life excited about what you actually have to do and what your talents and your potential allows you to get to. So, and I hope I'm making sense here with this idea of like expanding your uncomfortable to then become more comfortable. But at the end of the day, I don't think now, I look at my mom, which she will also be a podcast episode, so make sure you guys stick around for her. My mom's lived in 18 different countries in her life, and I then think about how, in this case, my mom was probably really uncomfortable moving from her home country to just Africa. And then she did it a couple times, and then it just became a habit to her. And now she feels uncomfortable not moving countries. She's like, why am I not exploring? Why am I not learning? And that's the point you want to get to, right? Life is about learning, and it's about enjoying it. And of course, being uncomfortable for the moment that sucks, like talking to a camera for 30 minutes or shoving that friend out the fucking door. So many different things in that type of aspect and light obviously is going to make you uncomfortable, and it sucks for the moment, but you're going to reap so many benefits later, which is why it's so important for you to get there and to do that and take the steps towards it. So I really want to encourage you to just do something that makes you uncomfortable, but you know, it doesn't need to be all the time. It doesn't need to be like the guys from Yes Theory who seem like every video they're up to some absolute crazy bullshit. But I still love them anyways, you know, not calling them out. I'll still watch every single one of their videos, but you know, you don't need to be like them. Unless you want to be like them, then you better start working on it now, because this is going to be something crucial. But you know, it's also those small decisions that can just make you really uncomfy. And we're not always taught about this type of stuff. Like, nobody in school was telling you how to be comfortable, how to not be like uncomfortable. It just happens. You find yourself that you're comfortable watching romance movies on Friday night with ice cream rather than going to the club. I am, that's for sure. But like, I've tried going to the club. You can figure out that you're uncomfortable and you would prefer to stay uncomfortable because it's not your thing. But at the same time, there's other things where I know this is my thing. I love to get up and record and do stuff. But at the same time, does that mean it's any easier to talk to a camera today than it is going to be tomorrow? No. I'm still going to get up and do it though. And then maybe 3 months from now, after, I'm going to be way more comfortable talking to you guys and literally just spewing my thoughts on these things. So comfortability is this box that you're putting yourself in, and it means that you're not going to always, you shouldn't always be in this box. It, like I was saying, sometimes it's really comfortable to be comfortable, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But at the same time, the problem becomes is, when do you decide to be comfortable or not be comfortable? And what my experience shows is that I didn't go to Spain just because I was like, I want to challenge myself. I want to make myself uncomfortable. I'm going to overcome my fears. It was never that. I went to Spain for a vacation and then I then woke up after I came back, put it on my vision board and said, living in Spain. Pasted it up there, had no idea how I was going to do it, and then went and did it. And it, to make yourself uncomfortable should be reasonable for when you want to be uncomfortable. So you should decide like, hey, you know what? This is actually going to be so much better for myself. I knew that going to Spain would allow me so many more life opportunities, better friends, better weather, that's for sure. So many things that I didn't have before, or staying in one place wouldn't offer me. And it was worth risking everything that I had. Well, not really risking. I wasn't like it was going to disappear tomorrow. It was going to stay. But being like, oh, you know, I can't call my mom whenever I want, and I have to be considerate of time zones, or I can't go home all the time for Christmas, and just things like that I was willing to give up because I knew what was going to be best for me. So comfortability also lies in like, are you evaluating your comfortableness? Like I was saying, don't do something uncomfortable just because everyone's telling you like, oh, you need to do something uncomfortable every single day or whatever it is. But you don't need to jump fucking mountains. You just need to take bunny steps towards what you want to get to. And me sitting when I was 14, putting Spain on my vision board, I couldn't tell you how to even get a visa at that point. So it's these points where you find yourself going, okay, you know what? This is what I need to do. And you're evaluating your comfortableness, saying, if I want to do this in my life, I will never actually get there unless I go and make myself uncomfortable. And then it makes it worth it. Being comfortable needs to be worth it. And I don't think I've heard anybody actually say that, but that's truly what I think about it. Is I find my Friday nights ice cream and a good, Netflix romance, not Hallmark though, not Hallmark. But one of those opportunities rather than, making myself uncomfortable and trying to be the coolest person in a club is not going to make me happier. It's not worth it to me. So what's worth it is my moments of comfortability. But then I know, looking at my future dreams and different opportunities that I would like to be offered in my life, isn't just going to happen by sitting there and watching Netflix. It's not just going to happen because I'm hoping that my comfortableness, my whatever it's called, is actually worth it, So that's why if you're in this situation, you have to think, like, assess your fear. And that's going to be most of what we're talking about in this podcast anyways, is I can give you all this advice, but if you're not assessing yourself, if you're not figuring it out yourself, because I don't know you, you don't know me, I'm trying to tell you as much as I can so you understand where I'm coming from with all this advice. But at the same time, it's not like you can just start tomorrow and figure it all out without actually looking inside you and thinking, how comfortable is comfortable for me? How worth it is my opportunities and my investment in my comfortability right now? And when I think of all that, at the point of me moving, it wasn't worth staying in Canada to get an education if it wasn't going to make me any happier than this other opportunity would. But fuck yeah, like I didn't want to get rid of everything that I had or move and do all these things and think about how the financial costs and the visas and actually having to go to class every day. But it was so much more worth it than just sticking my ass around and waiting until I felt like everything would just be handed to me, because life is not going to be handed to you. And that's the point of finding this balance of uncomfortableness. There's no point in sitting around and waiting for things to happen for you, because they don't just happen for you. Sometimes, you have the law of assumption, where it's this idea that, I just assume maybe one day I'm going to be a New York best-selling Times author. I think that's what it's called. I might have just butchered that, but at the end of the day, like, you can try to be like a best-selling author by just sitting there and not doing anything, but you actually have to put in the writing. And even if that's like waking up at 5 a.m., which is uncomfortable, and doing that work every day, but if it's worth it to get you to where you need to be, that's the point of assessment. That's where you need to be, is to, okay, this is what I currently don't like. I don't like doing this, but I want to get here. Is there a balance? Maybe that's something you need to consider as well. But for me, it was like really one or the other. It was like you either use all this money, you do everything you need to do, and you move to Spain, or you sit in this spot that you don't really like. So for me, I will always tell you to go do those things that you don't really like, so that you can get to the point where you're like, I am the coolest fucking person on the planet. Because you should be the fucking coolest person on the planet. And you shouldn't be sacrificing that so that you feel better or you feel worse. It's about making you who you want to be, because like I said, no one's going to give it to you. So if you find this point where your comfortability becomes this box, becomes this hole that you can't dig down any deeper, you can't get out, and you're just stuck in this spot, and you're realizing how it's hard for you to be grateful, it's hard for you to pull positivity, then it's probably time for some change, whether you like it or not, whether it makes you uncomfortable. It's time to let that go. And it's me telling you this isn't going to change anything. You can still decide to just pause this video and decide to not do anything I'm saying. I can't force you. But what we need more of in this world is people who are going to insist that you can become your best self, and maybe pushing you forward and doing the uncomfortable is better than just staying in this box. And I'll always vouch for being comfortable. There's no point of making yourself unhappy, and that's why I would never push it that far. Like, I don't think I could find myself being happy living on an island by myself. So would I make that decision rather than moving to Spain? Probably not, I wouldn't go that uncomfy. I wouldn't go on Naked and Afraid. Like, that's not me. But at the same time, I could see myself just moving continents and following in my mother's footsteps. So it's all about balance and not forcing yourself or stressing yourself out. And don't be too hard, because that's something I'm always am on myself, is that if I stay too long, because I felt, you listen to all this time like, oh, you got to be uncomfortable. There's no point in being comfortable, right? You're just sitting around doing nothing. And some of that's true, not all of it. Like I said, you don't need to be going around doing it all the time. But if you don't occasionally make at least those big jumps to go do and get yourself closer to what your goals are and your achievements that you want to have are, then you're in this position where you end up not getting anywhere. If that makes sense. If I'm kind of getting you to see the full picture at least. But it's a journey. And without this journey, you'll never get to the point where you can be comfortable doing uncomfortable things. What's scary now won't be scary in 10 years. I'm sure, like, my fear of boats when I was 6, I don't know why I was afraid of boats. I was just really scared of boats. Like, it was just not a thing for me. I'm not scared of boats now. I can go on a cruise ship. I want to go on cruise ships. I think that's kind of cool. But at the same time, you're not going to be this like, you're not going to be afraid of what you are now. So when I got the opportunity to go on a boat when I was 6, do I kind of regret it now? A little bit. That would have been fun. But you don't want to be in that position. Nobody wants to be in that position of regretting things that you didn't do or could do or whatever, because, you know, regretting shit is something that, like, I think going to any retirement home will absolutely show you that that's like, you don't want to end up in that spot. So what I'm trying to get to is, if at least you're not going to do it for your dreams, do it for the fact that you are going to eventually end up in this spot where you have to tell your grandkids, you know, I think we all have this envisionment of what we look like to our grandkids, you know, just them sitting, you're in a rocking chair back and forth and you telling them about your life. You don't want to be the grandparent that did nothing or was like, oh, you know, I was too scared at the time of what people thought of me, you know. You want to be that cool grandparent that had a bunch of cool stories and told your kids you just went for it and did all the things you wanted to do, whether that was just something that seems as simple as saying, like, oh, I want financial stability in my life, and doing those steps and making yourself like, okay, it's uncomfortable that I have to work 3 jobs. I wouldn't suggest you work 3 jobs, honestly, but, you know, if that's what you have to do to then maybe start investing or to start side hustles or passive income, like, I'm just relating this all to my case because my biggest fear is money. This is kind of what I think sometimes is like, in a rocking chair, do I want to tell my grandkids that I worked and I made nothing of it, you know, I'm just here and I wish I did more. No, I obviously, I'm kind of uncomfortable with the fact that, like, I don't know how to invest, or like, you know, I think last year at the club fair of my university, there was like the guys talking about cryptocurrency and everyone was just fucking laughing at them. Like, it's uncomfortable to learn about that stuff because I feel as if it's so stigmatized for being like a man's thing to do, you know, the stock market, Wall Street. And I blame Leonardo DiCaprio for this. like the Wolf on Wall Street. It's not a woman, it's a man. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to learn about all this stuff. But am I going to do it so that the day that I'm sitting there with my grandkids, I'm not like, oh, sorry, kids, I can't get you Christmas presents this year. Like, no, I want to be able to be like, here's a fucking new Nintendo 72 XD, you know, like with Animal Crossing version 72 on it. That's what I want. So why am I stopping myself from doing that and making myself presently comfortable? I meant comfortable, like right now, so that I don't have to think about that later. So it's just better to think about it now. And always, of course, one thing I'm going to always mention too is uncomfortableness. You're going to be grateful for yourself after you did it. Like I said, you're not going to have the same fears in 10 years. So doing it now and choosing to be uncomfortable rather than comfortable and enjoying at the same time those moments where you're like, it's fucking worth it to be comfortable right now. Like, I am happy where I'm at. And you should be happy where you're at all the time. But if that's currently watching Netflix and missing out on some stuff, then you do it. I'm not going to stop you. Nobody should stop you because it's kind of fun at the end of the day. But you don't need to have this crazy version. And this is what I think. When I think I'm comfortable, I don't have this crazy version of what makes me uncomfortable. You know, it's not this idea of like jumping into a volcano. It's just like getting in front of a camera or doing these little things that I can overcome. So put it into little actionable steps that you can hop towards constantly and eventually get there. Bueno. Our stories are not the stories of Benjamin Button. We're not getting younger, we're getting older. So do these little things that you can to make yourself uncomfortable, to increase how you can eventually be more comfortable in 10 years from now, which seems like a huge investment, but like investments are worth it. So think about it like that. What's worth it? What's not worth it for you? And apply those to what fears you have and what can you do to make sure that this fear doesn't cause more obstacles. If you do stuff like that and you take those steps, you're going to see the benefits. So I highly suggest you take some time to do it. And on that note, bunnies, it is time for the end of the episode and to thank you guys for watching and to make sure that you subscribe and tune in next time so we can have more of these conversations with different guests and myself included. And I hope that you all have a very sunny bunny day.